In this part of the lesson, we're going to take a look at some of our hotkeys. So in Jewelry Cad Dreamlight, there are various default hotkeys we can use, as well as being able to create our own. And a hotkey being a key or combination of keys on the keyboard that can give us easy access to a particular function or command. So let's take a look at some of the more useful ones. I'm going to open up a previous design. In the root object, navigate to my main part, double click, so we have some shortcuts that involve a combination of both the mouse and the keyboard, and we'll take a look at some of these first. A good one I like is the shortcut to the filter options that we can access via shift right click of the mouse button. This gives us access to our picking filters. Okay, instead of coming up here, we can shift right click anywhere in the graphics window to pull up this entity filter. Next one to be aware of that we have seen before is our shift left click. This is our chain pick shortcut. Holding down the shift key and left clicking when we pick an entity allows us to chain pick the same entities that are connected to our first pick. Okay, so we can use this with lines, arcs, curves, or edges connected end to end. This is our shortcut for the chain pick, shift left click. Another good one is the control left click. If we chain pick these edges first, control and left click allows us to unpick that entity if it is already highlighted. So if we have a group of selected entities, like our edges here, holding down the control left click will allow us to deselect that entity from our selection. Similarly, holding down control and left click allows us to add another entity to our selection. Okay, so if we're just left clicking, we can only pick one entity at a time. Hold down control, pick multiple faces in this case. If we pick one that we don't want, holding down the control key, left click on the highlighted entity to deselect it. Okay, another shortcut that we have seen previously is our Alt and left click. This allows us to pick the second entity if we have several entities on top of one another. So in this case, when I'm looking through the shank, I have this face here and I have the corresponding one on the back side. I can pick the one on the back side by holding down the Alt key, okay, followed by the left click to pick that one. Alt key, and it picks the alternate selection. Okay, in the case where we have three faces on top of each other, we can pick the third entity by holding down the combination of Alt and Control. Okay, so let's try and find an example to show this. I'm going to delete these panels first, part of our rendering studio. Okay, so if we're looking through at our setting, or in fact, let's look through the ring shank from our side view. We have a face here, we have an inside face, and the adjacent faces on the other side. Okay, holding down no keyboard button, the left click will pick this entity, our frontmost face. Holding down the Alt key, left click, will pick our inside face. Finally, holding down the Alt and Control key, left click, pick the third face. Okay, so there are a few shortcuts that involve the keyboard and the mouse that can help speed up our designing. Moving on to the hotkeys that are specific to the keyboard, we can see the default hotkeys that come with ZW and Jewelry Cad Dreamlight by right-clicking anywhere in our vacant ribbon space, navigating to our Customize panel. Here we have a tab titled Hotkey. If we left-click in here, okay, if we change our category to all hotkeys, you'll see all of the current hotkeys that we have. Okay, so we can take a look at some of these and see what may help speed up our design. A nice one is our zoom all, Control A. Control A. Okay, this zooms in or out so that we are viewing the entirety of our design. Okay, another one that we may use often, Control C for copy. Control D for dimensions on or off, same as this icon here in the Document Aware toolbar. We have some hotkeys for the views, using Control plus the up, down, left, right keys. Okay, our isometric view, Control plus I. Save, Control S, useful to ensure that we are always saving our work. Undo, redo, Control Y, Control Z. These are synonymous to many other programs. Okay, finally some of our function buttons. Okay, F1, I use this often to pull up the help browser. Okay, and the help browser will correspond to the command that we are currently in. It will navigate to that location within the help. Okay, and this is very useful if we're struggling on a particular command or operation or finding a few issues with it. Okay, we can also access this via our info icons within the operation. Okay, F11 and F12 allow us to cycle through our views, and what we mean by this is if we change our view, we can use F11 to go back to the previous view that we had, F12 to go forward again. Okay, so this is useful if you had a nice view set up and you accidentally change it, maybe. You can use F11 to go back to the view you had prior. Okay, a couple of other hotkeys that aren't in that hotkey panel for whatever reason are our F3 and F4 buttons. Holding down F3 and then using the right mouse button to rotate our object, we will rotate about the view axis. Okay, in this case the Z axis. Okay, our rotation normally allows us to rotate dynamically like this. Also, our F4 allows us to rotate about the axis perpendicular to our view. So we have our viewing plane here, the axis perpendicular or normal to our view going into the screen. We can rotate about this holding down F4 and using our right mouse button like before. We are rotating about our display axis. This is known as our display axis. Okay, so just a few helpful ones there. Okay, but maybe more useful is if you find yourself using a command often, you might consider setting up a hotkey for it. Okay, we can set up hotkeys very simply within our Customize panel in the Hotkey tab. Search for the operation that you want to set a hotkey up for. Maybe blank. Okay, here is our blank command. Left click on it. If you want to assign it to the B key on the keyboard, simply type it in, apply, confirm the operation. Okay, let's come into shape, pick the shape, and if I press B, Okay, it is blanked out. So that's one of the hotkeys that I like to create. Another one, I find myself using the 3-point curve often. I like to set this up to be C for curve, apply, extrude. Okay, this is E. Okay, but you can create any hotkey you want with any lettering that you want that suits your preferences. Okay, maybe another one. I do like to use the mirror. Set this up as M. Okay, so these are just adding a few hotkeys that can help speed up our designing. Curve, by pressing C, we get the 3-point curve. M to mirror. Okay, B to blank. E to extrude. Okay, so these are some of the hotkeys. Okay, also remember that we can get quick access to some commands with our right-click options. Okay, so if you would like to know some of the hotkeys that I use myself, I'll bring up a list of them now. Simply pause the video and you can add these in for yourself if you wish to.